Hi everyone, this is Sarah Church at Montana State University, and thank you all so much for joining our session today. My talk builds off what you just heard from Bill Kleindl. This talk is part of a larger research project where we are seeking to understand aquatic system experts' perceptions of wetland ecosystem services. And in this talk, I'm specifically talking about the part of the research where we're trying to understand kind of more the nitty-gritty of how do we protect wetlands. As Bill noted earlier, our research addresses challenges and opportunities surrounding the U.S. no net loss wetlands policy. In this talk, I'll be highlighting survey results that speak to challenges of what appears to be a disconnect between wetland decision makers' values surrounding wetlands and the idea of the opportunity for the public to utilize social and cultural ecosystem services of wetlands. This challenge is related to where wetland mitigation occurs. This is a very contentious issue, as you can see from these headlines, newspaper headlines. In the U.S. West, there's a lot of rapid growth and development that also means wetland losses. And where those wetland losses are mitigated are part of what is contentious, because mitigation can and does occur far from where the wetland was lost, thus removing potential social and cultural ecosystem service benefits. So we ask, what are aquatic system experts' perceptions of effective policy and planning for wetland protection? And we'll try to show that here. So as I said, this was part of a larger project on wetland ecosystem services, and we administered an online survey through Qualtrics software in December 2020 and January 2021 to U.S. Mountain West aquatic systems experts. So we sent this survey directly to a list of federal, state, and local and tribal wetland decision makers. That was an N of 56. And then we were also able to utilize a few aquatic resource organization listservs to distribute the survey. So between those two groups, we got 179 responses, and almost 75% of those had a postgraduate degree, and almost 38% were female. 77% of respondents fell into these three states, with Montana we had the most respondents, followed by Washington and Colorado. Our expert panel had worked in aquatic systems related field for an average of 22 years, and that experience ranged from 1 to 50 years experience. We categorize respondents' organization type, and 43% of respondents fell into these 5 organization types, with state government having the most respondents. So today in this talk, I'm reporting on 2 sections of the survey, and in this first section that I'm reporting on, we were trying to understand how respondents thought about ecosystem services and wetland mitigation. So some of our broad questions that we're trying to answer was, did respondents place more value on biophysical services or social cultural services? And what type of wetland should be mitigated if another wetland has to be filled in? And where should the mitigated wetlands be located? So just to orient you to this slide, in the yellow, that was the broad question that we asked, followed by a series of statements. And this particular question, we did a 5-point Likert scale, with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. So here we can see that respondents had pretty strong agreement that wetland ecosystem services should be considered in mitigation decisions, including where to locate mitigated wetlands. And just to orient you to how these slides work, you can see the statement here. That was the actual statement that survey respondents saw, and then how many people responded, and then the mean Again, remember that 5 was strongly agree and 1 was strongly disagree. So we can see that our respondents say, yeah, ecosystem services are important and should be considered in decision making. Yet here, where we are trying to figure out if biophysical or social and cultural qualities were more important in wetland mitigation decisions, we see that our respondents just don't think wetlands should be filled in at all. They disagreed with every option that tried to put more value on biophysical and social ecosystem services. Now, this could be with how we phrase the question, and we may, in our second round, we'll be doing a second phase survey, try to get at this a little more explicitly. And then here we wanted to understand if our experts saw importance of the public having opportunity to reap benefits of wetlands through access by placing more importance on locating or protecting wetlands to allow for public access, more so than private land. You can see here that our respondents had low agreement, 2.9, it's kind of neutral agreement, that wetlands with public access should have more protection than those on private land. Again, I have a feeling that it's just because like all wetlands should be protected. I think that's probably what's happening there. We then posed a scenario question where we asked about where to locate a wetland to replace one that had benefits to birds and bird watching. Now this scenario could be anywhere in the U.S. And this is a really a very real problem. If a wetland has to be filled in, where should the no net loss occur? Where should the mitigation occur? We found that most respondents thought the wetland should be located pretty close to where the lost wetland was located. 57% said that the mitigated wetland should be no more than 5 miles away from where it was lost, and 17% said no more than 25 miles. So overall, our respondents do not think that filling in wetlands in any context is okay. Yet, when they're faced with a context-specific scenario, respondents chose to mitigate the wetland close to where it was lost. In a different section of the survey, we wanted to know how our experts perceived the importance of different planning and regulatory efforts to help protect wetlands. So again, this is the question stem followed by a series of statements that you'll see next. And in this question, it was again a 5-point Likert scale, with 1 being not important and 5 being very important. So in these statements, we see that understanding of ecosystem services, our respondents thought are important to wetland protection. So in these particular 2, which were fairly high agreement, wetland decision makers' understanding of provisioning and regulating benefits of wetlands is important. Not quite as important, but still in an agree part of the scale was their understanding of cultural benefits. We also wanted to know other stakeholders' importance, and we were asking about developers. A lot of the wetland loss is happening because of new development, and our respondents thought that developers or property owners, their recognition of the potential of wetlands as project amenities would be important to wetland protection. But they're a little less, but still in the agree side of the scale, that the public understanding of the ecosystem services provided by wetlands is important. So understanding overall seems to be fairly important to these respondents. We also asked about the importance of different planning processes in protecting wetlands. Good communication between decision-making entities was the most important, at 4.5. Collaborative process, including the public in decision-making, were deemed not as important. Although collaborative was close to the agree on the mean, including the public is quite neutral. We also asked about the importance of policies and incentives in wetland protection. And we can see here that respondents thought just the existing policies are important. Yet they also said that changing policies to be more stringent is important. Less important are allowing local governments to do some trade-offs to incentivize ecosystem services and new developments, and very neutral response to local governments providing monetary incentives to preserve ecosystem services in these new developments. Finally, we asked about public access again. Responses were neutral about whether public access to wetlands is important to their protection. So, key takeaways from this section. Our respondents reported that the most important aspects of wetland protection are wetland decision makers' understanding of provisioning and regulating benefits of wetlands, and communication between decision-making entities. They also thought that those existing state and federal policies, state, federal, and local policies is important. But we don't know if respondents think those existing policies work well or could be better. We know that they probably, without them, wetland protection wouldn't happen. So those are important. And we can see that they think that we should have more stringent policies. Developers and property owners may be an avenue for exploration. So how do we get them to understand that wetlands are amenities? How do we incentivize developers to integrate those into new developments? There is less support for monetary incentives for this avenue of protection. And then the opportunity to engage component is not being thought of as important by our respondents. So we need to delve more into this. These are some of the avenues that we're seeking to explore more, really taking those key findings and trying to delve more into that in our second round survey. Thank you to Ashley Gilbert, my master's student who working with me, who did a bunch of this work, and of course Dr. Kleindl, who this overarching project is his brainchild. Thanks so much.